Your grandfather retired at 62. Full pension, paid off house, one job his entire working life. You're refreshing a banking app at midnight, splitting rent with someone you met on an app 3 weeks ago, and you make more money than he ever did. Same country, same hours. Somehow you're the one who can't get ahead. You got a raise this year, maybe your second one in a row. Your bank account looks exactly the same as it did in January. That's not a coincidence, and it's not you being careless with money. It's a number, and it's been lying to you for years. Today we're going to catch it and figure out what actually breaks the cycle. Once a month, a government spreadsheet spits out a single figure and calls it inflation. Lately it's been sitting around 2, maybe 3%, practically a rounding error, barely worth a headline. 2% is supposed to explain the gap between what you earn and what you can actually afford. It doesn't explain a fraction of it, because that number isn't tracking your life. It's an average, weighted in a way that quietly buries the costs you can't skip: your rent, your groceries, your insurance premium. None of those are climbing at 2%. Not close. Let's pull the actual receipts. Start with the easiest proof in the world: a shopping cart. A dozen eggs used to be the kind of thing you didn't even check the price of. Then, in under 2 years, that price doubled, in some places tripled. Milk, bread, ground beef, individually forgettable. Stack a decade of them on top of each other, and the exact same cart costs dramatically more to fill. And once a company can't raise the sticker price again without you noticing, they've got a quieter move. Same box, same shelf price, fewer chips inside, smaller cereal box, smaller ice cream tub, thinner roll of toilet paper. There's a term for it now: shrinkflation. You're not imagining it. You're paying the same or more for less every single trip to the store. The government spreadsheet says 2%. Your actual receipt is telling a completely different story. Now, the big one, the line item eating the largest bite out of every paycheck in the country: rent. There was an old rule of thumb: never spend more than 30% of your income on housing. It was supposed to be the conservative number, the safe one. In most major cities today, that rule is fiction. Half your paycheck is gone to rent before you've bought a single bag of groceries. It's not that apartments got nicer. City after city simply stopped building housing fast enough to keep up with the people who needed it. Zoning laws made new construction slow, expensive, or in plenty of places, flatly illegal. Less supply meeting the same or bigger demand. You already know where that math lands. So an entire generation is bidding against itself for a shrinking, aging stock of apartments. More people chasing every single listing that opens up. Here's the part that should actually make you angry. None of this happened because anyone stopped working hard. Since the late 70s, the average American worker has become dramatically more productive, more output, more value, every single hour than any generation before them. The paycheck didn't follow. Adjust for real cost of living, and typical wages have barely moved in 50 years. Picture two lines on a graph, starting together at the same point in 1979. One line is what workers produce. The other is what they get paid. For a while, they climb together. Then they don't. One keeps rising. The other goes nearly flat. That gap between the two lines, quietly widening for 50 years, that's your missing raise. So if you're producing more value than any worker in history, and your paycheck barely moved, where exactly did the difference go? Follow the money, and it lands in two places: corporate profit margins and the paychecks sitting at the very top. In 1965, the average CEO in America earned about 20 times what a typical employee at their own company made. Today, that ratio has blown past 200. At some companies, past 300. Same company, same industry. Nobody started working 300 times harder. Add stock buybacks to the picture. Instead of raising wages or hiring, companies now routinely spend record profits buying back their own stock, inflating the share price for shareholders and for executives who are paid largely in stock. None of it is illegal. None of it is even hidden. It's quietly, perfectly legal. And it's a major reason the value you're creating never makes it back into your paycheck. Then 2020 happened, and the whole picture got worse fast. Governments printed and pumped trillions of dollars into the economy to keep it from collapsing during lockdown. Arguably necessary. But more money chasing the same pile of goods pushes prices up. That part isn't controversial, it's just arithmetic. At the exact same moment, factories shut down and cargo ships sat stalled outside ports for weeks. The actual supply of goods collapsed. More money, fewer goods on the shelf. You don't need an economics degree to see where that goes. Prices spiked everywhere, almost overnight. And here's the part nobody likes to say out loud. Once companies realized customers would swallow higher prices without pushing back, plenty of them kept raising prices well past what their actual cost justified. Corporate profit margins hit some of the highest levels in decades, in the exact same years the headlines were calling it a cost of living crisis. Economists started calling it, half joking and half not, greedflation. So let's lay the whole picture out on the table, all at once. Wages that stopped tracking productivity 50 years ago. Housing supply that never caught up with demand. Corporate margins protected in the one moment prices could rise without much pushback. None of this is one villain in a back room. There's no single person to blame. It's a structural squeeze assembled out of small, individually legal decisions, compounding year after year, decade after decade. And it lands in exactly one place. Your account balance, every 2 weeks, quietly a little lighter than it should be. The results show up in numbers that would have sounded absurd to your grandparents. Homeownership among young adults today is dramatically lower than it was for the same age group one generation ago. The average age of a first-time homebuyer has climbed into the late 30s. It used to sit closer to 25. Household savings as a share of income have been sliding for decades, and that decline is hiding an even bigger divide most people never see. Here's the split almost nobody talks about. More than half of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck right now. And that's true at every income bracket, not just the low end. At the same time, roughly half the country owns no stock at all. Not a single share, not even inside a retirement account. The half that does own stock isn't split evenly either. The wealthiest 10% hold the overwhelming majority of it. So when prices rise, asset owners have a cushion. Their homes, their portfolios, tend to climb in value right alongside inflation. Everyone else just absorbs the hit with nothing on the other side of the ledger to offset it. That's not a coincidence, and it's not really about effort or education. It comes down to ownership, who actually has a stake in the economy and who's just paying into it every month. So what would actually break this cycle? Not just explain it. Build enough housing that rent stops swallowing half of every paycheck, which means fixing zoning specifically where people are being priced out, not building somewhere else and calling it solved. Reconnect pay to productivity through real bargaining power for workers, instead of waiting for companies to volunteer to share the gains. Widen who actually owns a piece of the economy, so investing in retirement savings start early for everyone, not just for people who already had capital to begin with. None of that happens by itself. It happens when enough people understand how the machine actually works well enough to demand it. Because if nothing changes, the race doesn't end. It just resets every single year a little further behind where you started. So no, you're not bad with money. You're not lazy. You haven't done anything wrong. You are running in an economy where the finish line keeps quietly moving and mostly nobody bothered to tell you it moved. Understanding that won't cover next month's rent. But it changes the question you're asking. Stop asking what's wrong with you. Start asking what actually needs to change. Because the second you can see the gap on the graph, you stop blaming yourself for standing in it and start pushing for the fix instead. If any of this connected a few dots for you, that's exactly what this channel exists to do. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.